Buenos días a todos, yo soy el consejero y uno de los pastores originales del festival San Fermin in Nueva Orleans. For me, the genesis of the running of the bulls in New Orleans actually goes all the way back to my time in college at LSU, which is where I actually met Mickey Hanning, aka El Padrino. We were both dating identical twin sisters at the time, and we're both frat dudes and loved partying and had a lot of friends in common, and that's kind of where we started our friendship all the way back in the late 90s. Well, fast forward to right after LSU, I think he moved to Houston, I moved to Rome, Italy, and worked there as a tour guide for about 4 years until 2005. It was during that time in Rome where a lot of the different skills and experiences that I had would go on to really inform the festival. For one, it's where I met another one of the pastores, Kurt Eischen, aka El Guapo, who was stationed in the Italian island of Sardinia with the US Navy. And he would come over to Rome often, and we would hang out together and became fast friends. And then he would eventually wind up back in New Orleans and eventually wind up on the police force, and to this day handles a lot of the logistics that are so critical and important to the event. I also, while in Rome, learned a lot of different things: how to DJ, how to organize events, how to promote events, how to design graphics, how to do web design. And so obviously Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005, August 2005. And it's at that time that I made the decision to return to the city. So 3.5 months later, December 2005, I was back in New Orleans, and the following Mardi Gras, the first Mardi Gras post-Katrina, which was 2006, I bumped into Mickey once again, and as I do every Mardi Gras day in the streets of the French Quarter or the Marigny, and we were both pretty deep in our cups from what I remember. And Mickey was telling me how much he loved the running of the bulls in Pamplona, Spain, which he had done back in 2002, and was going on to say how if there was any city in North America that could host a comparable event, it would certainly be New Orleans. And so I said, well, let's do it. You know, who do you have in mind for the bulls? Because we're not gonna get to release bovines in the streets of the city. So he said he hadn't worked out that detail just yet. I remember he tossed around the idea of having his wife Beth, aka La Madrina, dress up with a papier-mâché helmet and chase us with a bat or something like that, which is hilarious because, you know, Beth is just way too cute and petite to be intimidating, so it was funny. At the time, however, one of the other pastores, Tracy, aka La Rebelina, was becoming one of the flat track roller derby girls known as the Big Easy Roller Girls here in New Orleans. And I was also the de facto DJ for their bouts as well as their parties and after parties. So there was already a relationship going on with the Big Easy Roller Girls, which would eventually lead into the beautiful relationship that still exists. More on that later from another expert. But it was time to sort of put things in motion, and it was really, at this point, it was June of 2007 when I really sat down to create the first ever online presence for the festival, which was a month before the actual event. And at the time, Facebook was not a thing really, Twitter was not a thing. The biggest social media player was MySpace. And it was free and it was easy, and I started to sort of flesh out a MySpace page for the event. I was also fueled on 2 bottles of really good dry white wine from our future sponsor Marques de Cáceres that night. I remember Mickey was in Burgundy, France at the time, so I was really excited to show him something when he got back from that business trip. So that night I jammed out a bunch of the marketing verbiage, which is still being used to this day to promote the event. I recall, you know, MySpace requires you to have a unique URL, and so it was going to be myspace.com/ what's it going to be? So I thought, well, it's going to be New Orleans, Louisiana. It's going to be unique to our city. So let's go ahead and make it NOLA. And then we're going to have a running of the bulls. So let's go ahead and have NOLA Bulls. And so that was when myspace.com/NOLA Bulls started. And to this day, NOLA Bulls is the name of the organizing unit that runs the festival. And you see all over shirts everywhere. It was also that night where I was thinking that people are going to wonder why we're asking them to do this. Why are we asking them to show up at a bar at 6 in the morning and then 2 hours later get chased through the streets of the French Quarter on a hot July morning with roller derby girls dressed up with horns on and wielding wiffle ball bats and spanking us, chasing us from one bar to the next. And sure, people are going to ask why, and I just thought, why not? And I decided to put it in Spanish instead, which is the beginning of the phrase "por qué no," which to this day you see all over the festival and on t-shirts. And that's something that really tickles me to see that all over the festival. So it's July 7th, 2007, the first ever running of the bulls in New Orleans. We weren't sure what to expect. We didn't know if anybody would show up. We didn't know if people showed up, would they be wearing the appropriate attire that we suggested. And the first venue was a 24-hour bar called the Three-Legged Dog, right on the corner of Burgundy and Conti Street. And so I remember turning the corner and for the first time seeing about 200 revelers dressed in white with the red. The music was blasting out of the bar, and I recognized maybe 10 to 15 of those revelers, so we knew we were already on to something. Well, 14 roller derby girls showed up that year to participate with the horns and the wiffle ball bats, and my dad actually had a bullhorn that we used to release the bulls. 8 a.m. sharp, we ran, they chased us, they spanked us. We got to our second and final stop, which is about a half a mile away, but it was a little bar we took over. We had 3 DJs lined up, including myself. Another DJ was Mike Fiducia, who was a Baton Rouge-based artist who also happened to have had a mechanical bull he had built with a PA system inside that also emitted smoke. So yeah, por qué no, bring it on too. So we had a great time. A couple hours later, it's 10 a.m. By this time, everybody's blind drunk, completely drenched in sweat and sangria. A great success by all accounts. So that was year 1, 200 runners, 14 roller bulls. It just exploded after that. Year 2, about 1,000 runners. Year 3, about 4,000. Year 4, about 5,000. Then we just got too big for the French Quarter and had to start expanding out into the warehouse district where the festival runs to this day. So fast forward to 2020, it's a weird year for a lot of different reasons. And so here we are having ourselves a virtual encierro, a virtual fiesta. We appreciate you tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of the background about how the whole thing got started. Muchas gracias a todos. Adios. Chao, 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 chao.